Here's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove podcast. We're talking NFL wildcard playoff weekend and giving you our picks. We're bringing in a Dallas Cowboys insider, and we're also going to talk coaching carousels and candidates for every team, as well as maybe some Major League Baseball. We'll see what we get to today, but that and so much more. That's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove podcast.
From Belly Up Sports and the Belly Up Podcast Network, you're listening to the Sports Stove podcast with your host, Vince Stover.
Hey, good looking, what you got cooking? How's about cooking something up with me?
Welcome into a new edition of the Sports Stove podcast. I'm Vince Stover. I'm joined, as I am most weeks, by my dad, Dale Stover. Dad, how you doing?
Doing great tonight. Boy, a lot going on in the world of sports.
Yeah, there has been a fair amount. I've been watching croquet. No, I'm just kidding. I've not been watching croquet, but a lot of football stuff going on. Playoffs getting ready to start up. We got a little bit of Major League Baseball movement as well, which is always fun. And so we will be talking about that possibly here in just a few minutes. And then we're going to be talking possibly college football as well. Some negative news in the world of the college football playoffs and possibly the expansion not happening, at least as soon as we thought it would. So that'll be interesting to see where all that stuff shakes out as well. But I want to get into the NFL, and with the playoffs starting here this week, Dad, a lot of games. They start Saturday. They run through Monday this year as well, so plenty of football throughout the weekend. Is there anything just off the top here that gets you super excited about the playoffs for this first round? I know when the Packers play, there's that, but for the first round, what kind of stands out to you as something that's exciting?
Well, there should be some really good games. I think there's some real evenly matched ones that could go either way. And like I said, this first weekend is just setting things up, for next week, which of course then the number one seeds get back involved in it. And should be some really good games. There's some teams that have played really well, but have had off games. So I think as you look at this, it's fairly wide open. I mean, there are some favorites, but I think the games will all be interesting to watch, because I think it's hard to say, well, absolutely, that team is going to win and not have a chance. I think there's a couple really big underdogs, the 7 seeds, and I've kind of said that all season, that when you got to the 7th seed this year, probably wasn't going to be really good teams. And that may be the case, but again, anything can happen. These teams have both gotten there, went through some adversity to get there. So I think it'll be fun to watch, because I think, these are pretty wide open in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, the Raiders, the Bengals, the Eagles all have coaches who are in the and the Cardinals? No, I'm not sure. They all have coaches who are in the playoffs for the first time. Then you've got one rookie quarterback in Mac Jones. You've got Joe Burrow, who's never been there as well. Some interesting games. Then you got Ben Roethlisberger. He's playing Sunday night against the Chiefs. He's back by miraculous reasons. I mean, is there any team less deserving of the playoffs than Pittsburgh?
No, but again, I mean, to say less deserving, they got there from that standpoint. I mean, this is kind of Roethlisberger's swan song. If there was ever a team of destiny, now I don't think that the destiny is going to go much further, but it's an interesting story. Here's a guy that has been a great quarterback, and his last year, and all of a sudden, wow, they make the playoffs. So I don't think it'll go much further than that. But and Philadelphia has been so shaky. It looked like several times they didn't have a chance, and then all of a sudden looked like they were going to challenge for the division. So you just don't know there either. And talk about quarterbacks haven't been to the playoffs. I guess Jalen Hurts probably hasn't been either. So
he's been to the college football playoffs. It's the same thing, right?
Pretty much.
The SEC, he's ready to go. Back to Ben Roethlisberger. Do you think he actually wanted to make the playoffs? Do you think he thought, okay, I win my last game, I can walk off in the sunset? Now he's got to go and get his rear end whooped by Kansas City again and leave with his head down. Do you think Roethlisberger wanted to make the playoffs, or do you think he was happy with walking off a winner?
I think he wanted to win. Watching the game, it seemed like he was very motivated and very excited. And
Yeah, I know he wanted to win. The question is, did he want to make the playoffs?
yes, I think so. I think you want to, in that position, you want to go as far as you can.
I guess. I don't know. I don't like Ben Roethlisberger, but oh well. Speaking of deserving or undeserving teams, we're going to talk about the Dallas Cowboys. But in order to do that, we had to bring in a guest. And so we have dug in the deepest dumpsters to find the Dallas Cowboys insider. And I put parentheses around that, by the way. But maybe an outsider. Dallas Cowboys outsider. Our friend Matt Downs joins us today. Matt, thanks for being with us.
Hey, happy to be here.
I'm sure you are. That's exactly what Dak Prescott said when he made it to the playoffs this year. No, I'm just kidding. I have been pretty positive with Dallas this year. Dad has not been very positive.
Not at all. I mean, he just said Philadelphia challenged for the division. We had a 3-game lead.
Philadelphia challenged for something. But nonetheless, Dallas is here. I wanted to bring you on, Matt, because as a Dallas fan, we look back through history. It's been since 1995 that Dallas has went past the divisional round, but they've been to the playoffs several times. Last time was in 2018, so it's been a couple of years. But I mean, this team, from a person who's not a fan of Dallas, I look at this team this year. I go, okay, Dak Prescott, he's a top tier quarterback, not like Brady Rodgers top tier, but he's in that next level of quarterbacks. You've got receivers that are phenomenal. You've got a running back who played well this year after a couple of years of taking a break. But and then you got a Super Bowl winning head coach in Mike McCarthy that's there. What's the confidence level in Dallas fans right now?
I think we're pretty positive, but that's typical for us Dallas fans. We're very optimistic. We go by feelings, not by facts. And so I'm excited. We got a pretty good team. Dak is definitely streaky. And I think if we get going right off the bat, offensive-wise, put some pressure on Garoppolo, I think we got a pretty good chance coming out of San Francisco. And, I mean, even your dad liked Mike McCarthy a few years back. And so I thought he'd be a little optimistic about that, but apparently not.
All right, so let's talk about Mike McCarthy. Dad, I want to start with you. Mike McCarthy, he won a Super Bowl in Green Bay. I told you about 2 years before he got fired, he needed to be fired, but you felt like, no, he should stick around for a while. Are you still high on Mike McCarthy as a head football coach?
I think he's definitely a good football coach. I don't know if there's anything about, any doubt about that. I said all along, I didn't see how he fit in Dallas with Jerry Jones. It just doesn't seem like that would be the greatest fit long term. I think he's a good football coach, no doubt about it. But I don't know. We'll see. Again, I mean, obviously, if he was an outstanding coach, he'd still be at Green Bay. So. And some of that was knowing how to relate to everyone and situations like that. But, I think McCarthy is a good football coach. He knows football, no doubt about that. And it's just, like I said, to me, it wasn't a great fit. I even heard talk this week, because he called the plays in Green Bay and he doesn't call the plays there. And, so exactly, how's that going to go? How does he fit with that? I heard it talked about it, for him, it'd probably be good for Kellen Moore to get a head coaching job. Then he could go back to, running everything.
I mean, they go, 12-5 this year. I think Kellen Moore's doing okay, and maybe better than what McCarthy would do. Matt, let's talk about Mike McCarthy. How confident are you in his coaching abilities? And he's kind of, made fun of by pretty much everybody that's, sits on their couch. But how do Dallas fans, or you in particular, feel about Mike McCarthy?
I know he's trying hard with the analytics thing, and I can take it or leave it. I understand sometimes you make the decision because the numbers say go for it. But during the season, I think he took fourth downs and we messed us over a little bit because we should have just punted and not worried about the analytics. So I think he's a little hung up on those things. He's hung up on big terms. I heard the ozone for the very first time from him the other day when it was in the red zone. So he has all these different weird terms, and sometimes I think he's trying just a little bit too hard. And I like him. I think Kellen Moore, he can get a little stale in the offense. I think sometimes that could happen. But hey, we're doing a lot better than we were a few years ago with Jason Garrett, so I can't complain too much.
All right, so let's transition to the defensive side of the ball. You've got a guy that may be the defensive rookie of the year, maybe be the defensive player of the year, at least in the NFC. You got two guys on defense that have really stood out this year. And then you got Dan Quinn, the former head coach in Atlanta, who is being interviewed for jobs for head coach again. And he's really bolstered that defense. The defense was a top 10 defense this year in Dallas. And it seems like to me, the two things that hinge on the success of Dallas right now is Dak Prescott and then the defense playing top 10 kind of defense. So how exciting was it to see Dan Quinn come in this year? And were you optimistic? You said usually you are with Dan Quinn's hire coming into the new season at the beginning of this year.
Well, anybody can walk in and be the better defensive coordinator than what we had. I mean, that was terrible. But so I was really excited that we had somebody else. And I think he brings in a lot of energy. I really like him. I do think oftentimes with NFL, it comes down to getting the right players and not having Jalen Smith. Now, I'm a Notre Dame Irish fan, so I love Jalen Smith, but he's no Micah Parsons. And this is a Dallas Cowboy fan talking, but I think he's the second coming of Lawrence Taylor. So I think he's doing real well. I think that really helped. And we got some people healthy. DeMarcus Lawrence is playing really good football right now. So, yeah, I love it.
Dan Quinn is a guy that, as a head coach, I always kind of questioned, although he made it to a Super Bowl, so you got to give him credit for that. As a defensive coordinator, though, I always loved, and I thought he was a great hire from McCarthy and Dallas when they brought him in. And Micah Parsons, I thought was a good draft, but I didn't realize he was going to be as good as he was, or is, I guess, as well. Dak had almost 4,500 yards this year, 37 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Yet some people, like that guy, keep saying, "Oh, he's not any good. He's not any good."
Yeah.
Before I continue this, you like Mike McCarthy, but you think Dallas is no good. So what is it that you're holed up with Dallas this year?
Again, I just don't think they're proven. I don't think they're going to make a run at the Super Bowl, which is what you said. They were a Super Bowl caliber team all year, and I have not thought that. So,
the hang up. What is it that
they've been very up and down. Even the defense hasn't dominated every game there. And again, it just, I mean, the media couldn't wait for Dallas to start to have a good team because this is American team, even though finally you don't hear that a whole lot anymore. But I guess the hype is just hard for me. They do have some very good players, no doubt about that. This Parsons has really, really come on. Of course, we talked about him for the draft and we're very high on him. But like I said, he's probably better, been more dominant than we would have thought.
Okay. So basically you're just annoyed by the media and that's why, and they're inconsistent. Those are your, okay. Back to Matt. Dak Prescott, 4,500 yards, 37 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. The stat line's good, but granted, he's not played great every game. And even as of late, it hasn't been great. They're playing San Francisco. San Francisco has an okay defense as well. Do you expect Dak to come out just on fire, or do you think it's going to be a game that's kind of have to sludge through?
I think it could go either way. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes out and he throws it all over the field. He is streaky. So is Tony Romo. He was streaky too, but I feel like I had a little bit more trust in Tony's throwing ability. It seems like to me, the wide receivers and Dak this late in the year, they're not on the same page sometimes. And it seems like it'll go 2 or 3 series where like, why is CeeDee Lamb running that way and Dak through the other way? And so if everybody could get on the same page and we get some good playing calls, I think we have a shot to run it. I'm not high on Garoppolo, especially, he doesn't have a thumb or whatever. So that should help us, So if we could get some pressure on them, I can think we could run up the score a little bit. But if all of a sudden we go out and we get a 3 and out, and every time that happens against a good team, I think to myself, oh no, here we go again. And Dak's stat line is deceiving because we'll get down by 2 or 3 touchdowns, and then he'll start throwing it all over the field. And then that's how his stats keep coming up, So, and then we still lose. I mean, we make it close, but we still lose. So
that's reminiscent of Green Bay the last couple of years of Mike McCarthy too. Get behind early and then throw in everywhere, and all of a sudden it looks good, and everybody's like, "Oh, greatest offense ever!" And the reality was it was really bad early on. Now Zeke had a better year this year than he had in recent couple of years. Is Zeke fully back? Are you fully confident in his abilities again?
No, but he doesn't wear long sleeves anymore, and so he didn't get all the fumbles didn't happen this year once he went back to short sleeve. So I appreciate that about him. He can move the pile again. The last 2 years, he never moved the pile, and that's why we really need Tony Pollard to be that speed back, and Zeke can wear him down a little bit. So that's why we need both guys.
Yeah, having that 1-2 punch. Zeke had just over 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns. Pollard 719 yards, only 2 touchdowns. But that 1-2 punch at running back is the way to go in the NFL right now. And the teams that have two running backs.
Pollard could have a lot more touchdowns. It's just every time it's on the 1 yard line, Zeke gets it. And normally Pollard gets us there. So
yeah, the guy that I liked the most, that I was high on coming into the year, was the tight end Schultz. He ended up with 78 catches, 808 yards, and 8 touchdowns. He's not quite Witten, but he's definitely making his presence known on the team. How encouraging, because it's been a couple of years since it seems like, at least in my opinion, that Dallas has had an effective tight end.
Yeah, I thought Blake Jarwin was going to be the guy. That's what they kept telling us. Then he got injured. I think it was an accident we got Schultz and how good he's done. And he can even take hits, too. He's been taking hits and still catching the ball. And, he's done real well. And having Jarwin back is going to help us, too. But Schultz is definitely the better tight end.
Yeah, not that I like to pat myself on the back, but if you go back and listen to our August episode, the NFC East preview, I said Schultz was a guy to watch for. I'm talking fantasy football, actually, was a guy to watch for in that as well. All right, Matt, Dallas versus San Francisco. Dallas leads the all-time series 19-17-1. They lead the playoff series 5-2. It's a 3-point. They're saying Dallas a 3-point favorite, which basically means because they're at home, they're supposed to win. And other than that, they're relatively even, at least according to the professionals. Are you thinking this is going to be a close game? I know you said it can go either way, but your final prediction coming into this weekend for Dallas versus San Francisco?
I think we'll get them by a touchdown. I'm thinking it'll be more like 24-17, something like that. That would be my guess. I would love it that we could run up the score like we did on Philadelphia's backups, but, I don't think that's going to happen.
It'll be interesting to see for sure. Shanahan has, he's a very smart coach and has had a lot of success in the early rounds of the playoffs, especially. So, Dad, anything else for Matt?
No, I know you visited the stadium there in Dallas. Have you been to a game there?
No, I have not.
I was wondering about home field advantage in all of these games, and I know that's a huge stadium, of course, holds a lot of people, but I don't hear it seem like as much about the home field advantage there. I wondered if maybe because it's so big, it's not as loud as some of the ones that have, end zones close or whatever. I just wondered about that. It doesn't seem like you hear as much about, they're playing in Dallas, so that's such a strong home field advantage as you hear of some of the other places.
Yeah, I think you got a point there. I do know they're trying. Jerry's trying to get 100,000 in for this weekend, and also we're doing a whiteout, and that's the first time I heard of that in a long time. And they're all really pushing on social media that not to sell your tickets to 49er fans. because they're nervous that that's going to happen. And I think Dallas fans in the stadium are normally people are not screaming their head off. And I think that's why people can come in and do fine. I mean, the first day we finally got that stadium open, Eli Manning threw all over us. And so it's always sort of been that way in that stadium. But I think they're going to try to make a push to get people out.
I think with not being in the playoffs since 2018, it's the fandom should be high. I think the playoff atmosphere should be good in Dallas. If it was a deal where they were like New England and they were there every year for, the last 20 years, then maybe it would not be quite as energetic. But I have a feeling all the home fields this playoffs are going to be pretty rocking, especially with last year, being not quite as full in most, not in Dallas, I guess, but in a lot of other places. So should be good. Matt, I'm happy for you. I'm happy that your team made it into the playoffs, won the division, even though they were tightly contested by Philadelphia.
That's right.
But
we run the East.
But I appreciate you coming on. I know you listened to some of the shows and excited for all fans this time of year when their team makes it. I talked with a San Francisco fan today, and he had more confidence in Jimmy Garoppolo than he's had and all the other times I've talked to him. But nonetheless, it's going to be a good time in the playoffs. But Matt, thank you for joining us tonight. We sure appreciate you coming on.
Good to see you all. Thanks again.
All right. Have a good one.
All right.
That's our friend Matt Downs. He is from Tennessee. We've known Matt for a long time, and we sure appreciate him taking the time to come in. Dad, we had a comment on Colorcast. Thank you for tuning in on Colorcast. Those that are predictions: San Francisco pulls a 27-21 upset. Is what came in there on Colorcast. So we'll see. We'll get to our picks here in just a second. From there, actually, let's get straight to our picks, Dad, as we get into the NFL playoffs. We're going to be talking about coaching carousel here coming up next. But let's get, and we even have a comment already about the Texans head coach. We'll get to that in a few minutes. But let's get in straight to our picks. We're going to just pick straight up winners here throughout the playoffs. And we'll get the repick each week in case we get them wrong the first time. But, Dad, let's start with the Saturday game. Cincinnati Bengals, you are a resident of Ohio near Cincinnati. And so here we sit. Cincinnati is a 5.5-point favorite over the Las Vegas Raiders, who earned their way into the playoffs by beating the Chargers in a overtime thriller. Bengals have looked good. They got Joe Burrow. They've got Jamar Chase. They got T. Higgins. They got Tyler Boyd. But they also have a coach that's never been there before and a defense that isn't great. Then you go to Las Vegas, and they barely have a coach. They have a good quarterback, but they don't have a lot of talent around them. Waller's been injured. Jacobs hasn't been good this year. The defense has had moments where they played well. Cincinnati hosting the game. Which way do you lean? 2 10-7 teams, Cincinnati and Vegas. Where do you go?
I think Cincinnati, again, they're at home. I think you brought up the big questions, though. They have a coach that hasn't been in that situation. They have a quarterback that hasn't been in that situation, but they have played awfully good this year. Again, they're playing at home. And like you said, Vegas, I think Vegas they have a quarterback that's really played well. Carr has, and I think he's proven he can lead the team. And they have rallied around the interim coach, no doubt about that. So I guess it wouldn't be a total shock, but I think Cincinnati, we've talked, I think they can make a run for it, and I think they ought to win this game.
Yeah, I agree. I joked about it with Jalen Hurts, but honestly, Joe Burrow, his experience at LSU is as close to NFL playoffs as you can get. I mean, we're taking the team undefeated through the SEC, through the SEC championship game, through the college football playoffs, and ultimately winning the national championship. I know people who don't like the SEC really just shudder at when we talk about the SEC being great, but it is different there, and that experience will help Joe Burrow be ready for this game. Now, on the other hand, I don't trust the coach, but I don't trust Vegas as coach either. So when it comes down to it, I look at talent. I'm going Cincinnati as well. I think that's the best place to go. Another comment on Colorcast comes in. Raiders got the best slot receiver in Hunter Renfrow. So Vegas 28-24. He does have a caveat saying Kupp doesn't count as a slot receiver. since he really plays everywhere. So Hunter Renfrow, best slot receiver in the NFL? No, but he's played well. I think Vegas keeps this one close. I think they have an opportunity to win this game, but I think there's just a little too much talent. I think Cincinnati should be able to put up plenty of points to win this game, so we'll both go Cincinnati. Game number 2 on Saturday is the third time this season that they'll meet. The Buffalo Bills will host the New England Patriots. Buffalo comes in a 4-point favorite. Of course, the immediately thought goes to the last time they played at Buffalo. New England threw the ball 3 times, only completed 2 passes, and still beat Buffalo. But Buffalo came back and beat New England at New England as well. What do you think about this game? What direction will it head, and what are the key factors of this game?
Well, I think, again, I would pick Buffalo, but New England has been surprising this year. And again, they're going to, of course, coaching-wise, they've got a lot of playoff experience there. They do have a rookie quarterback. I think with it being at Buffalo, but like you said, New England beat them there before. I still think, even from the start of the season, Buffalo is one of the better teams. Now, they have struggled and they've lost a couple that they should not have lost. But I look for Buffalo to come out here at home and play well, and I think talent-wise they can just outmatch New England a ways there. Again, it'll have to do with coaching. They'll have to stop what worked for New England, last time, which was the run. And but I would pick Buffalo, and again, I think Allen, can have a big game. And again, their running game is not dominant, so the weather will affect a few things there in Buffalo.
Yeah, I'm going to take Josh Allen over Mac Jones, and that's ultimately what this comes to. Belichick's the better coach in this setting, but Allen's the better quarterback. Buffalo has the better offensive talent. I think defensive-wise, talent-wise, they're relatively even, but New England has had some really good defensive games this year as well. I just look at the talent level here, and I just lean heavily towards Buffalo. I think that if New England can get in their head, that's one thing, right? Because Belichick can play head games, mind games with people. But you're talking about a rookie quarterback. And again, he has some great college experience at Alabama. But at the end of the day, I like Buffalo better in this game. The last time they played, Buffalo won 33-21. I think you're probably looking at a similar score for this round as well. I think Buffalo handles their business. They are a legit Super Bowl contending team. Buffalo is. I don't think New England is. I think they're close. I don't think they're far away. I think Buffalo is probably the biggest contender outside of Kansas City in the AFC, but they also have really dropped the ball several times this year. So I'm not confident in picking Buffalo, but I believe that they are the team that should win this game. I think they're the most talented team, and they're the home team with a more experienced quarterback. So that's what I'll take too, is Buffalo over New England. All right, Sunday's games. We start off the day with Tampa Bay versus Philadelphia. Philadelphia with a first-year head coach, the only first-year head coach in the playoffs this year. Jalen Hurts at quarterback. Minshew maybe can see some snaps as well. Tampa, we talked about it last week. They're down now Antonio Brown. They're also down Chris Godwin. They have less talent than what they had earlier in the year. They are 13-4. They've had a good season, and Philadelphia shouldn't be a big challenge for them, as Tampa's an 8.5-point favorite. But where do you look at this game?
Yes, I think you have to pick Tampa in this one. Again, they are down a little bit, and I think the fact that they're not as good as last year will catch up with them before it's all over, but I don't think it will this week. They should handle Philadelphia. Again, Brady, is a great leader, and I think he'll have everybody ready to play. I think they are getting Fournette back this week, and I think, you have to go with Tampa on this one, and they should win.
Yeah, I think this one lies heavily on Tampa's defense. If they let Jalen Hurts run all over them and things all of a sudden stay close in this game, you would think Tom Brady can pull them out of a close game, but Brady has proven that even though he's had a great season this year, his arm talent isn't quite where it was in the past. And we saw him last year in the playoffs through 3 interceptions, I think, in the NFC Championship game. They still won, but they won because of their defense. And so they should win this game. I'm picking Tampa as well. But Philadelphia is one of those weird teams where all of a sudden they have a crazy good night, and that's why they play the game, right? So it'll be interesting to see how that one shakes out. All right. The afternoon game is Dallas and San Francisco. You've already made perfectly clear you don't have any confidence in Dallas, but do you have confidence in San Francisco? What's your pick for Dallas, San Francisco, and why?
I picked San Francisco, and I think they will outcoach them. I think when Dallas gets rolling, they can be hard to stop. And if they get going and get a lead, it could be tough. But I think if this comes down to a close game, I think Shanahan can win this. They have a good defense. They play like they've always played. We're running the ball. And if they can be effective at all, because when you play San Francisco, you can kind of contain them, but all of a sudden they'll break this long run or two. Garoppolo has been a very good manager of the game. Has not, I wouldn't say he's lost a lot of games for him. Now, again, San Francisco barely got in at the end, but some reason I think San Francisco we'll have a good shot at winning this game, especially if it stays close. If it's a close game, I think San Francisco will win. Yeah,
Garoppolo is a game manager, no doubt, and that's not always a bad thing. But one thing about Jimmy Garoppolo is he throws untimely interceptions, and Diggs had 11 interceptions this year. I think this is a game that Garoppolo loses for San Francisco. I think that maybe they keep it close. They're in the game, and then Garoppolo does something that just absolutely blows it for him. He's thrown 12 interceptions compared to 20 touchdowns this season. And at the end of the day, Dallas, in my opinion, is just too talented for San Francisco. Not to say San Francisco cannot win, but I don't expect them to. I'm picking Dallas in this game as well as with all the other home favorites. Listen, I agree with you. I understand the coaching situation and things like that. I just don't think San Francisco has the team. They've got one good offensive player healthy and is even healthy, and that's Deebo Samuel. So at the end of the day, Dallas, I think, wins this game. I think they win by at least a touchdown, but I've been wrong once or twice before. Kansas City and Pittsburgh. We talked about it slightly before. I don't think Pittsburgh even deserves to be in the playoffs. And I know you'd say, well, they're there, so they deserve to be there. That's baloney. They won their last game, but they also tied against Detroit earlier in the year. I mean, they're not good. And yet here they sit in the playoffs facing Kansas City, who's the 2 seed. Somehow Tennessee pulled off the 1 seed. Kansas City, a 12.5-point favorite. Is this game even close?
No, it shouldn't be. Kansas City should control. If Kansas City's ready to make a run to the Super Bowl again, then they need to come out, really be rolling. Pittsburgh shouldn't be able to match up with them. I did see where it looks like Juju may come back this week and play. But again, if their defense should be able to get all over Roethlisberger, and that should be the end of it from there. So Kansas City should control this, and it'll set them up well to make a run if they do.
Yeah, I mean, Juju has caught 15 catches in 5 games that he played, 0 touchdowns. I don't think him coming back really does much for them. Their best receiver is Deontay Johnson. He's had a great year, but Najee Harris has had a great year as well. When it comes down to it, though, this Pittsburgh team just isn't good enough. Kansas City, I think they're the AFC favorites. I picked them without any hesitation. The only thing that makes me think, I guess, would be Buffalo. But at the end of the day, Pittsburgh's bad. Kansas City's good. At Kansas City in the playoffs, Ben Roethlisberger doesn't have it in him. Kansas City walks away with this game, in my opinion. All right, the last one is on Monday. Again, playing for the 3rd time this season. The Rams and the Cardinals. The Rams a 4-point favorite at home. Arizona's getting some guys back that are healthy as well. This is the hardest one for me to pick, Dad. Which way did you go with the Rams and the Cardinals?
I think this will be the upset, I think, with Arizona. And there's just something wrong with the Rams. I don't know what it is, but we had them as one of the power teams in the NFC, and something there is just not meshed. I've been shocked. That the quarterback has struggled with interceptions here as of late, and again, Arizona should have all kinds of excitement. Now they've had trouble too near the end of the year, but then they jumped out and they came back. And again, this would be Murray's chance to really look good, and he'll be the key in the game, I think, from there. But again, to me, they're just. I like the Rams coach a lot. I think they've got a lot of talent, but they haven't played. Something's not right there, and I'm not sure what it is. I'm not sure if it's some of the players they brought in, things just don't mesh well, or what it is.
The Cardinals have lost 4 of their last 5 games. They lost to the Rams 30-23, the Lions 30-12, the Colts 22-16, and the Seahawks 38-30. That's the 4 losses they've had in the last 5 weeks. Losing to Detroit, Indianapolis, and Seattle, who are not in the playoffs, and 2 of those teams had really bad years. The confidence level and even though they're getting healthy to some degree and bringing guys back, you go the other direction, and the Rams have won their last 4 games. They beat Arizona, they beat Seattle, Minnesota, and Baltimore. Now, Baltimore, Minnesota, Seattle, not in the playoffs. So, they've played equally bad teams, yet they have completely different records. Matt Stafford has not been as good as I thought he would be. He doesn't have a great playoff record in his career, but here's the way I look at it, Dad. This is an opportunity for Kyler Murray to really begin his legacy. He can come out and have a phenomenal game, a phenomenal run in the playoffs, because they have the talent. They should get Hopkins back, and if that's the case, that helps them out a ton. They got the running backs healthy as well. They got Zach Ertz that they brought in midseason, but they also have Cliff Kingsbury, and there's nothing that Cliff Kingsbury has ever done to make me go, yeah, he's going to be successful in the playoffs. And then you look at the other side, Sean McVay, he's been to Super Bowl with Jared Goff, of all people. So I look at this one. The Rams aren't perfect. They don't have a great run game. They have talent on defense. They haven't played great defense all season. And then they have talent on offense as well. So I lean the Rams, but this is the one I'm just not confident in because the Cardinals have the ability to run all over LA. And whether or not they will is the question. So I'll go with the coaching matchup here and go McVay over Kingsbury, and ultimately I'm going to pick the Rams in this game. All right, there you go. Week 1 of the NFL playoffs. There we have given you the winners. We've agreed on most of them, but not all of them as well. And we'll look at the watch intensely here this weekend. One thing I want to let people know about is, Dad, our show is going to TV. And starting on Monday, you can catch an all-new Sports Stove and Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays on Tiki Live, the app that you can get on Roku TV or Apple TV. You go to Tiki Live, download the app for free, go to the search bar and search Belly Up. We'll pop up 7 o'clock in the mornings, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and we'll replay the episode at 2 o'clock in the afternoons, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And we'll still have it available on the podcast form Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays as well. So it'll be a great time. Make sure you tune in there. We've added Colorcast to how we produce the program now, and now we'll add TV as well, and excited about that opportunity. Dad, let's talk about coaches and coaching changes here in the NFL that are come up. So right now we've got, 7 teams, I think: Broncos, Jaguars, Bears, Vikings, Giants, Panthers, Miami, Las Vegas, and Houston. I think that's 9 teams. Although Las Vegas has not technically fired their coach or retained their coach or whatever it may be just yet. So, Dad, I look at these teams. I want to start. The same names are coming up almost everywhere. You're seeing Brian Daboll, the Buffalo Bills offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy, Kansas City's offensive coordinator. You're seeing a number of other names, but you're seeing Caldwell's name come up, who coached in Indianapolis. Brian Flores' name has come up almost everywhere other than Miami. Doug Peterson's name is there a lot. Then you got Leftwich and Bowles from Tampa that come up a lot as well. Is there somebody that you can think of that you go, boy, if I was going to hire a coach, my target would be this guy?
Well, I think the best coach of the bunch stands out is Peterson. He's won a Super Bowl. I think he's been a successful coach. He would probably be the guy I would look at. Now, it's interesting, these 9 teams, you have to look a little bit at their situations because some of them are going to be a really total rebuild. And, of course, in today's NFL, the question is, do you have your franchise quarterback? 4 of these teams, maybe you could say 5, have pretty strong quarterbacks. Some have young quarterbacks that need to be developed. So you're probably looking at a coach there from that point. To me, Peterson is a name that jumps off, but there's a lot of good coaches. There's many more than nine names that keep coming up really over and over that they're getting permission to talk to.
What teams do you think have their quarterback?
I think Jacksonville, of course, has potential. You have Las Vegas has a quarterback. Chicago, great potential in the quarterback. Minnesota has a quarterback. And potentially Miami, depends on where you come down with Tua and who comes in and how that works.
All right. So, yeah, I don't think Minnesota or Miami have a great quarterback situation. Now, they could be worse, no doubt about it. But having Carr, I think Fields is definitely a great potential, and Lawrence. So I'd agree with you on those. I think, Minnesota, they might even move on from Kirk Cousins here this offseason. So they might not have that going forward. That's something that'll have to be talked about as they look at hiring coaches. Peterson definitely is a great potential hire for somebody. I would definitely be one of my top candidates. Brian Flores is the guy for me. I look at it and go, man, what he did in Miami, what he was able to do with that. I mean, that place was in chaos when he came in. They had the rumors going around all year about Deshaun Watson possibly coming in. And even though they started 0-7, they ended the season phenomenally, almost made the playoffs. Almost doesn't count. I get it. But that being said, Brian Flores would be a guy that I would be all over as well. I think Peterson and Flores are 2 guys that I would definitely bring in to interview. I'm going to run through these names real quick for you, Dad, and see if anything pops for you. Denver, from what I've seen from Denver so far, they've got a long list of guys that have kind of made the realistic shot of being the next head coach in Denver. Brian Callahan, he's currently offensive coordinator in Cincinnati. He has head coaching experience. Kellen Moore in Dallas, Dan Quinn in Dallas. Those names come up a lot as well. Jonathan Gannon, he's the defensive coordinator in Philadelphia. Nathaniel Hackett, Green Bay OC, former Jacksonville offensive coordinator. Jared Mayo, he's on the defensive staff in New England, played linebacker there for him as well. Todd Bowles in Tampa. Eberflus, his name comes up a lot too. He's in Indianapolis, defensive coordinator. Brian Daboll and Leslie Frazier. So Frazier has some head coaching experience. Callahan does as well. All the other, and Todd Bowles does. Todd Bowles is an interesting one, Dad. He was head coach and didn't work out for him, but I feel like you give him another shot. He's a guy that I would definitely consider giving a second opportunity to as well. So those are the names Denver's mentioned. Any of those names pop out to you that you thought, didn't really think about them?
Well, I mean, I kind of looked at all this to see who was there, and like you said, the same names come up. I'm not as familiar with some of the coordinators, like from Indianapolis and a couple places, but they do come up a lot there. I'm always intrigued with someone who's kind of grown up in football where their dad was a coach. And as I saw names, Clint Kubiak was one that kind of jumped out there a little bit. But as far as the other ones, I mean, I think there's a lot of good candidates. It'll be interesting to see how this goes historically. Again, I missed this. I didn't think there'd be near this many coaching openings, and we may not be done yet. I think we probably are, but we will have to see. But, once things start to fall, once a couple get filled, then all of a sudden it gets interesting because it gets to be. But again, there's a lot of candidates out there. I think part of it is, are you looking for an offensive guy, or are you willing to hire a defensive guy and let him get a really good offensive coordinator as far as working with some of these quarterbacks are concerned? So, but a lot of good candidates. I think Leslie Frazier's a good candidate. As I looked there, that's one that jumped out. Again, Leftwich, I think, is very interesting. You're right about Todd Bowles. I think he would be one that should get a job, or at least be highly considered. We talked last time about Bieniemy, and that was kind of a surprise that he didn't get a job before. And I think you'd either see him get one quickly, or maybe he'll get passed over again, because he should be one that, if he's head coaching material, then there's a lot of openings here.
Yeah, definitely. And he's, I look at these jobs. I want to go back to Eberflus. You mentioned Indianapolis, DC. He got interviewed by a lot of teams last year. Made it through a couple rounds of interviews and stuff like that. So I think he's very close to getting a job. Jacksonville, we talked about them back when Urban Meyer got fired. I think Byron Leftwich makes a ton of sense for them, just being that he played for Jacksonville. He's had success in Tampa. Brady gives him a lot of credit as well. Hackett's kind of the same way, right? He was an OC at Jacksonville when they went to the AFC Championship game with Blake Bortles as their quarterback. Aaron Rodgers has spoke very highly of Hackett and what he's brought to the Packers as well. So those are names to watch. Doug Peterson, again, makes sense there, young quarterback. Chicago, Harbaugh's name has come up. Came up supposedly he wanted or was interested in Miami. Miami's not interested in him. But Chicago and Vegas are two names that get brought up when you're talking about Jim Harbaugh coming over as well. There was a name. Let me see if I can find it now. Let's see here. The Vikings, they've got Andre Patterson, who's their assistant head coach that they are interviewing. That's where Kubiak is at right now. So, if he goes somewhere, Minnesota's a place to watch, but Denver's definitely a place with ties to the Kubiak family. The Giants, they're going to interview their defense coordinator, Patrick Graham, who came over from New England as well. So that's another name to watch. The Panthers, Carolina, Bieniemy seems to be the leader in the clubhouse there as far as who they want. And then another name came up, Dad, and I'm not sure if you saw this. Two names popped up on the Carolina candidate list that not official candidates, but list that surprised me. One was Adam Stenavich. Do you know who Adam Stenavich is?
I do. I had not seen that.
Yeah, Packers offensive line coach. His name has been tied to the Panthers. And the other one, Dad, is Pete Carroll. So the question has been, will Pete Carroll be with Seattle? Will Russell Wilson be with Seattle? All that kind of stuff. So I thought that was really interesting there. Miami, other names that popped up on Miami's list. Vance Joseph, he's the Arizona defensive coordinator. He'd be looking for a second opportunity. Mike McDaniel, who's the San Francisco offensive coordinator, and he interviewed with Miami. I think it was Miami last time they were looking for a coach as well. And so I thought that one was really interesting. But let's get to Houston. Well, before we get to Houston, of the jobs that are currently available, what's the best job?
I think just looking at it quickly would be Miami. I mean, with the way they finished this year and some of the talent they have, I think Miami would be a good job. I think as far as a potential quarterback, I think the Bears are an interesting job because I think Fields can really, really be good from there. And, of course, that's got some stability to it too. So those were the two that would jump out at me.
Yeah, I think Miami and Minnesota. You look at the talent on Minnesota's team, right, with Justin Jefferson, with Adam Thielen, with Dalvin Cook. There's potential there to turn things around pretty quickly, even if Kirk Cousins is still your quarterback. In Miami, I'm not a Tua fan. I don't think that he is a star. I think he's a fine, okay NFL quarterback, but I don't think he's a star. But I think there's tons of potential in Miami. I think that you could get a quarterback like a Deshaun Watson in there and things again could turn around very quickly. I don't think you have too far to go in Miami. I mean, I think Flores had them kind of at that point now where if they can get to that next level, then they're right where they want to be. So those are interesting spots. The Raiders, they make the playoffs. How do you say his name? Bisaccia. Is he going to retain his job in Vegas, or do you think they have to move on?
I think it makes sense for him to stay.
Really?
I mean, he's done a good job in a tough situation there. I think the players are for him. He knows the situation. It wouldn't be a big turnover in a lot of ways. I think I'll be a little surprised if he doesn't retain his job. But, again, they may have somebody they're looking at that they're ready to get. So it'll be interesting.
The Lions love Dan Campbell. Do you think Dan Campbell's ever going to win a Super Bowl?
No.
All right, so I go the same thing with the Raiders. He's done well, don't get me wrong, and the players might like him. I don't see him being a coach that takes a team to the Super Bowl. I don't see him being a team that can build a program and keep things rolling there in the right direction. But you know what? They're probably going to get a new GM more than likely. I could be wrong. Maybe they keep Mike Mayock, but you get through all this stuff and there's so much that has to go into it. I would be shocked if Bisaccia is the coach of the Raiders come next year, especially with the kind of candidates that are out there. The level of coaching that is available in this offseason is very, very high. Now let's get to Houston because what a mess. Houston is an absolute disaster. They fire Coley, who honestly, talking about players playing for a coach, I thought Texans played very hard this year. They were in some games that they had no right to be in. They won a couple games as well. Their rookie quarterback actually looked pretty good, and they move on from their coach. And you talked about it. Well, maybe they do, and I really disagreed with you, but you were right. I was wrong. Why would anybody go coach at Houston right now?
Well, it's one, as you always hear, there's only 32 of these jobs available, and that's what everybody wants. So, Houston, the problem is, they don't have any, draft picks. There's a lot of things that were a problem there. But I think, you get somebody that can build something there. I would think they want to look for, and they would need to get a coach who could attract free agents. A guy who's got some experience, who's got some connections, because that's the only way they're going to rebuild real quick is to be able to sign some free agents and get the talent level built up. And so I think hiring a coach that has potential to do that is about the only way they can go.
What about a coach that can get Deshaun Watson to play?
Again, I'm not convinced where the Deshaun Watson thing ends up legally. If he can play, then if he stays there, that changes things quite a bit. And a coach who could get him to want to be there again, and that may be very possible depending on who they get.
I don't think it's at all possible for Houston to land one of the top tier coaching candidates. None of those guys are going to pick Houston over the other situations. Maybe if they're guaranteed that Deshaun Watson's going to play, they would, but that's not going to happen. He's going to play next year. He might get suspended for a few games. I don't think much is going to come legally of his situation, but he's definitely, he wants to leave. And I don't know that there's a coach out there that can get him to stay. That being said, two names that I've heard for Houston: Pep Hamilton, who has been around for a long time and offensive-minded guy. And then Jared Mayo is the one that makes the most sense. He's a New England guy, which the front office is a New England people. And he's a guy that, he's probably not going to get an opportunity to be a head coach this year anywhere else. So Houston's a job that's open. He has some connection too. I think he's a good coach. He was a great player in college and a great player in the NFL until he got injured and ended his career short. He makes the most sense for me in Houston. Really, it comes down to someone who's desperate for a head coaching job. someone who says, if I get offered a head coaching job, I'm going to take it. That's who ends up in Houston this year. I just don't think these guys, Harbaugh, Peterson, Flores, Bieniemy, Dayball, I don't think they want to go to Houston. And I think they'll hold out for other opportunities or go back to the situations they're in. I don't know for certain that Bieniemy didn't turn down that job last year. I'm still convinced that Bieniemy could have had the Houston job last year if he wanted it, and ultimately told him, I'm not coming into this place. So that's purely my opinion. I have no source. That's my thought going into it, though, is Houston, their front office is atrocious. The guy there doesn't know what he's doing. He's not a GM. He didn't grow up that way. He's not properly trained that way, and it's just a mess there. Houston, the way that they've handled their roster the last 3 years has been horrible. I can't imagine anybody wants to go there unless they just are great, opportunity to try being a head coach somewhere. That's what makes the most sense there as well. And it'll be interesting to see what other names pop up there, candidates and things like that, that pop up along the way. Again, I think Doug Peterson and Flores are the two guys that I look at and go, that's where I would hang my hat at. But some of these other coordinators, Bieniemy, Dayball, Hackett, Bowles, Leftwich, those kind of guys, I think they're good candidates. And I think there might be better candidates this year for coaching opportunities than there have been in a while. And, hey, we haven't heard Matt Nagy's name pop up. Maybe he ends up going somewhere and being a head coach. But you don't know. Let's go back to something you talked about, hiring an offensive-minded coach or a defensive-minded coach. I think at this point, there's so much talent out there. It doesn't, you hire the best guy that can handle a locker room, and then you expect him to hire the right people. So if he's a defensive-minded coach, you go out there and you spend big money on an offensive coordinator. If he's an offensive-minded coach, then you go out and spend big money on a defensive coordinator. There's just too much talent out there right now in the coaching world to overlook or to pass up a good locker room guy for someone because they like to throw the football. Everybody was looking for the last Sean McVay, the next Sean McVay in the last couple round of hires. I mean, just go out and find you a guy that can relate to players, and guys like Dan Campbell that can relate to players, but you got to make sure you have the right staff around them to make it successful everywhere else as well. All right. I love this time of year, Dad. Coaching Carousel is a fun time to talk about as well. Two quick things, and then we'll head out for today's episode. College football playoff expansion is in trouble. They announced that they have not been able to come to an agreement, so they've tabled the conversation for now. Surely they're going to come back around and have a playoff expansion, don't you think?
Oh, I would think so. And, as I've heard talk this week, I mean, the bottom line is that, there's just too much money involved in it. I think having a playoff is good anyhow. I think having more teams in it, I think they're going to have to rework this bowl thing anyhow. And I think having more teams using more bowls, and even if they have on-campus sites, I think all that will help. You would, from what I understand, I don't know if there's opposition to, or what I've heard, there's opposition to expansion. It's just they can't agree on how to do it or how many teams, or the structure of some of the bowls or what's going to happen with the Rose Bowl or whatever. They just can't get enough details. That's because there's too many people involved in it. But anyhow, surely they're going to, they'll get this worked out.
Yeah, they've got to come around. Last thing I want to hit on, Dad, is Major League Baseball. Lester announced he's retiring. Congratulations to a good career for him. But they finally came to the table. It didn't go well. The MLB put out an offer to the Players Association, which they, according to reports, did not take well. But I also read that nobody expected them to take it well. So now the question is how long till the Players Association comes back with a counteroffer? It's been said that the start of training camp, spring training, is definitely in question at this point. I still think we're relatively safe for the start of the season, But, Major League Baseball has failed over and over and over again. And, I don't expect anything great out of them. Players Association is going to have to handle the major part of this negotiation and then go from there on that. But baseball, hopefully, will be up and going here in a couple months and before it's too late and we start missing a bunch of baseball. We've talked about how poor baseball handles things in the past, so we won't rag on them too much today, but we'll get back to that in the coming months for sure. All right, Dad, we're wild card weekend. Saturday, Sunday, Monday will be a good time. Lots of enjoyment. We'll watch to see who the Packers play. 3 of the opponents that the Packers could end up playing, they've already played this season. And then Philadelphia is the one team that they possibly could play that they haven't played. Boy, would I be happy if Philadelphia wins in week 1, but I don't think that's going to happen. Your Super Bowl prediction is?
It would be Green Bay and Buffalo.
I had a feeling you'd go that direction. I'll go Green Bay and Kansas City this year as my picks, but I wouldn't be surprised if Tampa made it. I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas made it. I wouldn't be surprised if Buffalo made it. Everybody else, I think I'd be surprised, but nonetheless, it should be a fun time and a good opportunity there as well. All right, everybody, thank you for tuning in. Follow us on social media at Sports Stove on Instagram and Twitter. Catch us all now. We'll have 3 episodes a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, available in podcast form wherever you get your podcast, and also available on Tiki Live, the app on Roku TV and Apple TV. And eventually we'll have an easier way for you to get to it. But for now, you go to Tiki Live app, you go to the search and do Belly Up in the search. The Belly Up logo will pop up. Click on that. If you're on there at 7 o'clock in the morning, between 7 and 8, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I'll be on your TV and then get replayed at 2 o'clock as well. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of the Sports Stove podcast. Enjoy your great weekend of pro football, playoffs, college basketball, and anything else in between. Until next time, we'll see you around the Sports Stove.